The DCEU has seen its ups and downs for over a decade, but the entire story goes back hundreds of thousands of years. Here's the complete timeline so far. Around 200,000 years before the main events of the DCEU began to play out, gods ruled the Earth. The deity Zeus decided to create a new species similar to the gods, but Ares, the god of war, interfered with Zeus's plan and corrupted the newly made human race. In response, Zeus created the Amazons, an all-female race of noble warriors, who, according to Queen Hippolyta, would influence men's hearts with love and restore peace to the Earth. These two civilizations lived together in peace alongside the Atlanteans for thousands of years before the Earth was invaded by Steppenwolf and his parademon army. The forces of Earth banded together and ultimately managed to defeat and drive out Steppenwolf and his forces, although he left behind 3 mother boxes when he fled. Each of the 3 main races on Earth took one of the mother boxes with the intent of keeping them safe. Years later, the War of the Gods broke out, in which Ares killed all his fellow Olympians. But Zeus managed to create the island of Themyscira for the Amazons before he died. He also fathered Diana with Hippolyta, although the child was born after he passed away, leaving her with no knowledge of her true father. Later, Atlantis sank into the ocean and the deserters left and formed their own kingdom. At some point, while all these major events were playing out, the Enchantress was born and imprisoned alongside her brother Incubus. Plus, the Dreamstone was created, and the wizard Shazam imprisoned the 7 deadly sins in the Rock of Eternity, where he remained to guard them. According to 2022's Black Adam, around 5,000 years ago, the Middle Eastern nation of Kahndaq was the first major civilization. However, it was ruled by an evil despot named King Oktan. Luckily, the Shazam and his fellow council of wizards granted magical powers to a young slave boy named Harut, who led a proletariat revolution against the evil king. This is similar to what the wizard Shazam would do for teenager Billy Batson centuries later. To protect and save his father, the weak-willed Teth Adam, Harut grants Adam his godlike Shazam powers. Unfortunately, because Harut is temporarily depowered at that moment, he's killed by a hidden assassin's arrow. This enrages the newly superpowered Teth Adam, and in his rage, he murders King Oktan in cold blood. He also loses control of his powers and destroys a large part of the kingdom itself, inadvertently killing many innocent people of Kahndaq. Adam is then stripped of his powers by the Council of Wizards and is sentenced to be held in a magical prison inside a secret cave in Kahndaq forever. It's largely quiet on the gods and superheroes front for the next couple thousand years. And then World War I comes along. The conflict draws in Steve Trevor, who, while fleeing a skirmish with the Germans, crash lands on the hidden shores of Themyscira. Unfortunately, German soldiers follow, and humans invade Themyscira for the first time. A battle breaks out on the beach, and although the Amazons are victorious, Hippolyta's sister Antiope is killed in combat. Grieving and convinced that Ares is ultimately behind the Great War, a naive Diana decides to accompany Steve back to the human world, determined to root out and defeat Ares.
And once I find and destroy Ares, the German armies will be freed from his influence.
In the process, Diana winds up falling in love not just with Steve, but with humanity itself. She enthusiastically embraces much of what human culture has to offer while remaining true to her Amazonian roots. Although Diana is successful in defeating Ares and ending the war, Steve sacrifices himself in the process. Diana mourns his loss and decides to remain among humans permanently while continuing to work as a superhero. On Christmas Day in 1974, a young Thaddeus Savannah is on a drive with his father and his older brother Sid when he sees the symbols of the wizard Shazam appear in his magic 8-ball. Thaddeus' surroundings begin acting strangely, and he perceives that he and the car have been transported to a strange new place, which turns out to be the Rock of Eternity. There, Savannah has his first encounter with Shazam, who tells him that he's seeking a champion to inherit his magic. However, Thaddeus proves himself unworthy of the wizard's magic, and he's expelled from the Rock of Eternity. Thaddeus' resulting confusion distracts his father, which causes a car accident. As a result of all this, Thaddeus vows to one day find his way back to the Rock of Eternity and claim Shazam's power for himself. Several years later, in 1980, the baby Kal-El is born to Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van on the planet Krypton, shortly before the planet's destruction. Kal-El's parents successfully manage to send their son to Earth before the planet implodes, killing Jor-El and Lara along with the rest of the Kryptonian race. Several months later, Kal-El's spaceship crashes in Smallville, Kansas, where the baby is discovered by Jonathan and Martha Kent, who adopt and raise him as their own. The following year, Bruce Wayne's parents are killed by a mugger, leaving young Bruce in the care of the family butler, Alfred Pennyworth. Since the end of World War I in 1918, Wonder Woman attempted to operate in secret, although not particularly well since she still publicly saves people and takes down bad guys in extremely flashy ways. By day, though, Diana Prince works as an anthropologist at the Smithsonian Institute, using her lived experience to inform her specialty in ancient Mediterranean civilizations and cultures. There, she meets her co-worker, the largely forgettable Barbara Minerva, who sparks Diana's interest when the hero notices the Dreamstone in her office. Curious to learn more about the Dreamstone, Diana and Barbara begin to form a friendship, but everything goes sideways when they both wind up unknowingly making wishes on the stone. Diana wishes for Steve to come back, while Barbara wishes to be more like Diana, resulting in her receiving Diana's powers. The stone eventually falls into the hands of oil tycoon Maxwell Lord, who tries to use it to gain power and success for himself by essentially becoming the Dreamstone. Barbara then allies herself with Lord, who bestows cat-like powers upon her, turning her into Cheetah. Ultimately, though, Lord's plans collapse in on themselves. The Dreamstone's power is lost and all of its wishes are eventually renounced, including Steve's resurrection. As a result, he and Diana say goodbye yet again.
I'll never love again.
I pray that isn't true. There's a wonderful, big world out there.
After the chaotic events of the early 80s, the second half of the decade is much calmer, although it still carries some major developments. In 1986, Arthur Curry is born to human lighthouse keeper Thomas Curry and the Atlantean queen Atlanta. Unfortunately, while Arthur is still a baby, Atlantean guards attack the Curry home, determined to return Atlanta to Atlantis to marry King Orvax. Atlanta is heartbroken and leaves her family behind to keep them safe. Arthur is then raised as a human by his father. Also in the late 80s, Clark Kent begins to realize he has superpowers. As his powers emerge and grow, his parents urge him to keep them to himself, and they finally tell him the truth about his origins. Clark initially follows their wishes, but their desire to keep his identity secret ultimately winds up leading to Jonathan's death, even though Clark could have saved him. Around the same time, while Clark is discovering and struggling to come to terms with his powers, Bruce Wayne adopts the secret superhero identity of Batman, and he begins practicing his own unique brand of justice in Gotham. In 1990, NASA astronauts encounter an alien creature floating in space. The creature has bright pink and blue skin and is shaped like a starfish with a single human-like eye in the middle of its body. Once inside the shuttle, the alien starts attacking and killing off the astronauts. It has the ability to release smaller duplicates of itself that attach to a host. Once attached, the creatures completely control their victims. Nonetheless, Starro was eventually captured by the United States government, which makes a deal with the corrupt, fictional South American government of Corto Maltese. In exchange for funds and turning a blind eye to human rights violations, the Corto Maltese government agreed to illegally house the dangerous creature and experiment on it in a secret facility dubbed Jotunheim. Meanwhile, the Herrera regime that controlled Corto Maltese at the time used Starro to torture, kill, and control political dissidents, such as protesters, freedom fighters, and independent journalists. The main scientist heading the project was Gaius Greaves, the Thinker, who has a comically large head with brain-enhancing cybernetics sprouting from it. Greaves abused Starro, even derisively dubbing the creature by its comic book name Starro the Conqueror. As Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent each circle their superhero destinies in the early 2000s, other eventual heroes and villains are just beginning to embark on their origin stories. Arthur Curry begins training with Atlanta's advisor, Volko, working to unlock and hone his Atlantean powers so that he can one day take the throne as King of Atlantis. In 2004, Billy Batson is born, but he's abandoned by his mother when he's 4 years old, leading to him being placed in the foster system. At the time, he believes that he was accidentally separated from his mother, and he vows to find her again someday. In the late 2000s, psychiatrist Harleen Quinzel gets a job working in Arkham Asylum and winds up falling in love with her patient, the Joker. The Joker convinces Quinzel to help him escape. In return for her efforts, he subjects her to electric shock therapy and pushes her into a vat of chemicals, which alters her physical appearance and mental state. After emerging, Quinzel adopts the name Harley Quinn, and she and the Joker become two of Gotham's most notorious criminals.
Talk about a workplace romance gone wrong.
During roughly the same time frame, archaeologist June Moon is possessed by Enchantress while exploring the Tres Osos caves in Peru. After wrestling with his mysterious origins for years, Clark Kent finally discovers his true identity in 2013. That's when he goes to investigate a mysterious object in northern Canada and finds the ruins of a Kryptonian ship. There he learns his true name, Kal-El, and he also meets Lois Lane, using his powers to save her life. After finding the answers he'd always been searching for, Clark embraces his powers, becoming Superman. Soon after, the Kryptonian General Zod, one of the few survivors of the destruction of Krypton, demands that Clark be turned over to his care. Concerned for the people of Earth, Clark voluntarily surrenders, and Zod attempts to persuade him to join him in his mission to create a new Krypton on Earth. Clark refuses and battles Zod, destroying much of Smallville and Metropolis in the process. That includes the Wayne Financial Building, where a nearby Bruce Wayne looks on in dismay. The destruction wrought by Kal-El's battle with Zod fuels Wayne's bitter hatred of metahumans. The battle eventually ends when Superman kills Zod. Later, Clark begins working at the Daily Planet, where he's reunited with Lois, who promises to keep his secret. Following the destruction of Metropolis and the public reveal of Superman, Lex Luthor and his company LexCorp begin looking into metahumans, which leads him to the discovery of kryptonite in the Indian Ocean. LexCorp soon begins working to develop weapons technology using kryptonite, and while this is happening, Lex throws a gala for the Metropolis Library reopening after being destroyed in Man of Steel. Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, and Diana Prince all attend this gala and meet briefly, though none of them realize the other's secret identities. Later, Bruce Wayne plots to kill Superman using kryptonite, blaming him for the destruction of Metropolis. But before he can take action, Lex Luthor bombs the U.S. Capitol during Superman's Senate hearing. In the process of investigating LexCorp, Bruce and Diana discover the metahuman files, which include info on Aquaman, Cyborg, and The Flash. Bruce then attempts to carry out his vendetta against Superman, but when Lex Luthor creates Doomsday, the heroes team up to fight the monster together. Doomsday is defeated by Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, but Kal-El is killed in the effort, and a disgraced Lex Luthor is sent to Arkham Asylum. In the wake of Superman's death, Amanda Waller, the director of the advanced research group uniting superhumans, known by the acronym Argus, becomes worried that equally powerful but malicious metahumans could become a major problem for the United States. In response, Waller gets the idea to assemble a team of expendable, superpowered individuals to resist such a threat, which she dubs Task Force X. These individuals are selected from among incarcerated metahumans. The inaugural members of Task Force X are Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Killer Croc, El Diablo, Captain Boomerang, and Slipknot. The team is led by Special Operative Rick Flag, who's assisted by his sword-wielding bodyguard, Katana. The team is deployed in response to the re-emergence of Enchantress, who also releases her brother Incubus. Task Force X, nicknamed the Suicide Squad by Deadshot, confronts Enchantress and Incubus, but the group's disorganized and scattered nature leads to the team nearly disintegrating. However, the members eventually reassemble to fight the supernatural villains, and the anti-heroes are ultimately victorious. Rick Flag kills Enchantress, freeing June Moon from her possession, and the rest of Task Force X returns to prison with improved conditions, although the Joker soon breaks Harley free. About 5,000 years after his previous defeat, Steppenwolf returns to Earth in search of his 3 missing mother boxes. He locates the first in Themyscira and attacks. Queen Hippolyta and the Amazons do their best to hold him off but are unsuccessful. Hippolyta warns Diana of Steppenwolf's presence on Earth, and Bruce Wayne and Wonder Woman locate metahumans from LexCorp's files, including Arthur Curry, Victor Stone, and Barry Allen. The group battles Steppenwolf in Gotham, but they're unable to defeat him. While Steppenwolf attacks Atlantis to retrieve the Atlantean Mother Box, the newly formed Justice League uses the third box to revive Superman, thinking he's the key to defeating this overwhelming villain. At first, Superman has no recollection of his former life, but his memories return to him after seeing Lois Lane. He joins forces with the Justice League, and together, they manage to defeat Steppenwolf. While the team is now all on good terms, they part ways, each returning to their own lives. Shortly thereafter, Lex Luthor escapes from Arkham Asylum. The son of Atlantean King Orvax Marius and Queen Atlanta, Prince Orm Marius attacks the surface world, hoping to unite the 7 sea kingdoms and destroy the land, which he blames for his mother's banishment. His betrothed, the Zebellian Princess Mara, opposes Orm's plan but can't get him to listen to her, so she heads to the surface to ask Arthur for help. Together, the two go to Atlantis in search of the Trident of Atlan, and their journey eventually takes them to Sicily. There, they fight Black Manta, who carries a grudge against Arthur for refusing to save his father when he was dying. After narrowly escaping Black Manta, Arthur and Mara continue their search for the trident, leading them to the hidden sea at the Earth's center. There, Arthur is reunited with his mother and then goes to face the mythical Carathan, who dubs him worthy of the trident, giving him control over the seven seas. With his new power, Arthur defeats Orm and becomes king of Atlantis. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, Billy Batson is placed into the Vasquez foster home, and soon thereafter he's transported to the Rock of Eternity, where he's given the powers of Shazam.
Shazam?
Yes! Carry my name, and with it you carry all my powers.
Although he's initially confused, Billy quickly adapts to his new powers and basks in the excitement of being a superhero. Around the same time, Thaddeus Savannah finally completes his quest to locate the Rock of Eternity and unleashes the seven deadly sins upon Philadelphia. Determined to stop him, Billy passes Shazam's powers onto each of his foster siblings, and together they defeat the demonic baddie. At some point afterward, Billy, as Shazam, meets Superman and convinces him to stop by his school for lunch with his best friend Freddie Freeman. 2019 is fairly low-key, although a few important events occur. Captain Boomerang escapes from prison, making him the second member of the Suicide Squad to regain his freedom after the Joker freed Harley in 2016. However, Harley and the Joker's romance is ultimately doomed. The two eventually break up, prompting Harley to blow up the Ace Chemicals building in her distress. Meanwhile, Detective Renee Montoya begins investigating Roman Sionis, owner of the Black Mass Club and a ruthless local crime lord. In early 2020, teenage pickpocket Cassandra Cain is arrested by the Gotham City PD after being caught stealing. Sionis in turn hires Harley to recover a diamond that Cassandra swiped. But realizing that the young girl has swallowed the gem, Harley breaks her out of jail instead and waits for her to pass the diamond. She knows Sionis and his henchmen won't be so patient or merciful. Gradually, Harley and Cassandra develop a friendship, and they wind up crossing paths with Huntress, Black Canary, and Renee Montoya, coming together to form an unlikely alliance. Together, the group manages to defeat Sionis and his henchmen, killing the gangster in the process. Later, while the five of them talk about staying together as a group, Harley and Cassandra go off on their own, and the remaining three continue to fight crime as the birds of prey. At the end of 2016's Suicide Squad, we saw the Joker rescuing Harley Quinn from the clutches of Amanda Waller. Then we saw her colorful misadventures with the ill-fated Birds of Prey. At the end of Birds of Prey, we even see Harley and her mischievous protege Cassandra Cain driving off into the sunset. However, it seems not too long after her escapades in Birds of Prey that Harley Quinn is once again caught in the clutches of Waller's Task Force X. She's then sent on a dangerous mission, storming a beach in Corto Maltese alongside her former comrades Rick Flag and Captain Boomerang, as well as a few others. However, it's quickly discovered that they were all just decoys sacrificed to draw fire from the main group, which includes Bloodsport, Polka Dot Man, Peacekeeper, and Ratcatcher 2. Harley and Rick find themselves the only survivors of the initial assault on the beach, though both eventually meet up with the main team. Everyone then discovers and fights off Starro, saving the citizens of Corto Maltese. After Amanda Waller is subdued by her underlings back at headquarters, it seems Harley has escaped the Suicide Squad for good. By 2022, Kahndaq is no longer the epicenter of civilization. Instead, a high-tech private military group called Intergang has taken over the struggling Middle Eastern nation and its people for their resources, in this case, the fictional Eternium. Teth Adams' magical prison cave is eventually found by an archaeologist and freedom fighter named Adriana Tomaz, who summons Adam to save Kahndaq from the Intergang paramilitary group. When Adam awakens, Tomaz is attacked by Intergang thugs. Adam easily destroys them, then sets out to use his powers to protect Kahndaq. Teth Adams' violent nature gets the attention of Amanda Waller and the US government, which summons the Justice Society of America to stop him. The team includes Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher. The heroes and anti-hero fight for a while a descendant of King Octon takes control of an ancient magical artifact that turns him into a powerful demon named Sabak. Teth Adam and the JSA decide to put aside their differences, leading to the defeat of Sabak, but at the cost of Dr. Fate's life. Afterward, Teth Adam, who decides to go by Black Adam, is confined to Kahndaq by the US government, with Waller threatening him with the presence of Superman to keep him in line.
Black Adam. We should talk.
After the infamous War of the Gods that led to the death of the Greek pantheon, the defeated Titans took over in the power vacuum. This included Atlas, whose vicious tyranny eventually led to a human uprising. The humans were helped by the Shazam and the Council of Wizards, who, after defeating Atlas and the Titans, created a magical barrier between the human world and the gods' realm, which was left to rot. Unfortunately, in the first Shazam film, Billy Batson broke the magical staff that the wizards used to trap the gods in an attempt to stop Dr. Thaddeus Savannah. Batson succeeds in defeating the villain, but also erodes the magical barrier between the gods and man. This leads to the daughters of Atlas, Calypso, Hespera, and Anthea entering the human world and exacting revenge for killing their father Atlas. Together, they seek the fabled golden apple to sprout the tree of life and create a new world for the gods to reside in, which would kill all human life. In the end, Billy sacrifices himself to stop the goddesses and allows Anthea, who rebels against her sisters, to help humanity to take the golden apple and rebuild her realm. Luckily, after being buried in the gods' realm, Billy is resurrected by Wonder Woman due to her demigod status. She also uses her power to fix the magical staff. The classic superhero The Flash is a speedster who wears a heat-resistant red costume and runs really fast. That's because he can tap into what is dubbed the Speed Force, which allows him to sprint faster than the speed of light. His access to the Speed Force also gives him the ability to vibrate his molecules to phase out of traps, heal super quickly, and even travel back in time. Furthermore, Barry feels that with his powerful time-traveling ability, he can finally undo the tragedy of his past. That's why he tries to prevent the death of his mother and exonerate his imprisoned father, who was falsely convicted of her murder. However, like all good time travel stories, his temporal excursion leads to drastic unforeseen consequences. Barry unwittingly travels to a different timeline where Zod attacks a world with no known metahumans. Kara Zor-El as Supergirl replaces Kal-El as Superman, and Batman is older and played by Michael Keaton from the 1989 film. Barry also befriends and teams up with an alternate world version of himself, which leads to obvious complications in the space-time continuum. Furthermore, like the Flashpoint comic book event from 2011 that The Flash is loosely based on, his time-traveling adventures will have a lasting and wide-ranging impact on the whole DC cinematic universe going forward. At the end of The Flash, Barry Allen realizes that going back in time to save his mother has damaged the space-time continuum. The damage is so bad that it is eventually going to rip the multiverse apart and destroy everything if he doesn't go back to make things right. We even see universes that include the George Reeves Superman, the Christopher Reeves Superman, the Nicolas Cage Superman from the unmade Superman Lives film, the Adam West Batman, and many more about to collide with each other. Unfortunately, in this case, make things right means Barry has to let his mother die. However, while Barry does that, he makes one small change that, when he goes back to the present, allows his father to be freed from prison. Unfortunately, that one small change has universe-wide repercussions. When he meets Bruce Wayne in the present, he's not played by Ben Affleck or Michael Keaton, but rather George Clooney from 1997's Batman and Robin. Clooney's Wayne seems to recognize Barry, but Barry is shocked and confused.
I freeze. I'm Batman.
Then, in an after-credit scene, we see that Barry has found Arthur Curry and tries to explain his time travel adventures. However, Curry is belligerently and comically drunk and doesn't believe what Barry is telling him. Barry does mention, though, that all the Aquamen he's seen so far look like Momoa, confirming that Momoa will remain Aquaman even after James Gunn takes over the DCEU.